All right, today we're gapping with Derrick Levasseur, who is coming off of his murder on season three of The Traitors. Derrick, I'm excited to chat with you, not only as a longtime Big Brother viewer, but also obviously it's all about your time on this show. So, Derrick, how are you doing coming off of the murder and it airing on TV?
Pretty well considering I was murdered, right? I'm here with you. No, it was great. I mean, watching it back, I didn't get to the end, but I'm really proud of the way I played. If you're gonna go out, I think that's the way to go out. Rob's an absolute legend in this space. I was just saying, I think he's been on like 15 shows. This is my second
Wow.
show. And, I think when you watch the show back, if you didn't know that, I think I held my own. And that's really what it's all about. Going in there, I didn't want to sit back and just ride it out to the end. I wanted to hunt the traitors. And from the feedback I'm getting so far, people got that. It came across and we were so close to getting it. Just one vote, we get that
Yeah.
tie. Maybe it's a different game, but it was a lot of fun.
Before we jump into that,
Yeah,
why hadn't you done any shows since you won Big Brother? Like, what was the blockage there?
there's a lot of things. I have a 12-year-old and a 9-year-old.
Okay.
Big Brother. I've been asked to do a lot of shows. I'm not saying that to brag. I've been asked to do, well, I shouldn't say them, but it's all the shows you know. And it's about duration. It's about your contact with your family. And also, compensation's a part of it, right? Like
Hmm.
I have businesses, I have people that I have to take care of, employees that rely on me. And when you go on these shows, you're completely cut off from the outside world. But I would say the number one thing is family, being able to talk to them. And with Big Brother and Survivor and Amazing Race, you have no contact with your kids. I did that already. I did it 100 days with Tenley. I will never do that again. Let that be a message to anybody who's thinking about calling me. Life is too short, and the time you have with your kids is even shorter. And I'm not going to spend it inside a house, even though the memories are great. If I'm going to be doing anything, I want to have contact with my kids, and Traders allowed for that, which is why I ultimately said yes.
Yeah, I love that. So, watching the episode back where you get murdered by the traitors,
Yeah.
what did you learn? What did you think of watching them sort of discuss? Because obviously we don't see the full thing, but from what we
Yeah.
saw, what did you make of those moments?
It's interesting because Rob is such a legendary player, and I had a feeling I was going to go. I was kind of predicting it, but I also thought as a gamer, Rob would say, "Okay, if I murder him, my game's over."
Exactly.
It's over. It's there's two. I basically left him with two terrible scenarios. One, keep me in the game and have to go toe to toe with me at the round table again, which I don't think he wanted to do. And then or murder me and then completely expose himself as the cage boy that's probably the traitor, bring everything that I said was going to happen to life. And then I think just his game's over at that point. At some point in the game, they're going to take him out. And
Yeah.
ultimately, he decided to go that route. And he said something as far as, let me get my revenge. And that's not necessarily Rob. He does, if you come at him, he goes back at you. But I think if he had the chance to do it over again, maybe he rolls the dice and takes his chances with me still in the game.
Right, because he proved several times that he was pretty adept at the round tables too, right?
Yeah,
So it's sort of like
great.
he and you were too, but I
It would have been great to see.
yeah, and I feel like on the traders, if you're a trader, you want to get revenge on somebody who's coming for you, but it can't be as straightforward as just murdering them the next night.
We both went home the same episode. So
Right.
what did it really accomplish? I think in hindsight, the way to go is you keep me in the game. You team up with Carolyn like they were doing. You get Danielle out. They could have
Mhm.
gotten Danielle out. You recruit me and make it seem like we're best friends. And then you immediately turn on me as well. And you say he was the reason he was able to say all that is because he was talking about himself.
Got it.
That's
Got
the
it.
move. That's the move. It would have been hard to pull off, but if anybody can do it, it's Boston Rob.
Yeah. So as a viewer, I found it kind of frustrating the past couple weeks because I feel like the turret conversations have been almost like the same every time. It's like Rob throws a name out, Danielle's like, "No, we're not doing that," and then they do that. And I'm
Yeah.
curious from I think some people read that as not strategic at all and just sort of letting Rob steamroll the conversation in the turret. And I think
Yeah.
some people are reading that as Danielle has sort of a long game where like she is letting him sort of show his cards, get
Yeah.
out, and then it sort of frees her up. How do you read those moments kind of happening over and over again?
Think it's a combination. I think she understands that you want to push, but you don't want to push too much. The same way they're viewing Rob, she didn't want to be viewed that way, where it was like her way or the highway. Could she have pushed a little bit more? Possibly. I think Rob was also getting out her allies. And at that round table, I should say that turret. I'm biased, but I probably would have said, "Hey, listen, not going with Derrick or Dylan, and if we don't agree on something else, we just don't murder tonight. Like, put your foot down." But knowing how it worked out, it was a great move. She gave up me,
Yeah,
ultimately got Rob, and that's what she really wanted. So I can't blame her. It worked out exactly the way she wanted, and ultimately, the job for the Traitors is to get to the end. Danielle's still there,
exactly. Yeah,
so
yeah.
who am I to judge?
And I feel the same way. You know, it's like it's frustrating, but ultimately she's still there. And so,
She's still there. She's still
yeah,
going. I'm sitting here talking to you, and Rob's, we're going to be right behind me. So,
right.
all that said, me and Rob had a great moment, TV moment, but Danielle's still in the game.
Yeah. So you tried your damnedest to get Rob out of that round table. And it was, I thought, you know, you laid your case out so well, factually, very
And that's
clear.
that's the public opinion. Yeah.
Exactly. It was very logical. And obviously, it's easier said than done when you're outside of, either said when you're outside of it to say, oh, why would they not do that? You were in the moment and now you've watched it back.
Yeah.
Why do you think so many people weren't convinced by your argument and didn't vote the way you wanted them to?
I don't even know if they weren't convinced. I mean,
Okay.
honestly, what I think it came down to was two variables that I couldn't control. I think Wes's response to being accused of being aggressive, he didn't anticipate that.
Hmm.
And he responded that way. He was prepared for Rob to come at him. He wasn't prepared for the rest of the table to say, we don't like how you're treating us. And he responded in a visceral way, which obviously is not going to get you votes. The second thing was just it just happened to be this way. Carolyn and Danielle were currently in a fight. And instead of Carolyn voting for Rob, which they had agreed to do the previous episode, she changed her vote and voted for Danielle.
Out of spite. Yeah.
Those two variables, you change them, and the game is completely different. Rob's going home.
Right.
So I think I gave all the ammo that I could. I shot my shot. I thought I presented a solid argument. I was hoping they were going to process the information and come to a logical conclusion. It didn't happen. There were also people that I thought were more on the ball than they were. And I love these guys, but Brittany and Dylan, I thought when I
Right.
presented an argument to those two, they would be like, "Oh yeah, I got it." Brittany was Team Rob, and Dylan was like
Very.
the number one fan of the Boston Rob fan club. So I didn't know that Dylan was that in Rob's pocket at that point. I thought I could still flip him, which is what I was trying to do. Watching the show back, there was zero chance.
Right. Yeah. I feel like it was those things you just said, but it's also just a testament to Boston Rob sort of his social strategy and just like getting
Yeah,
those people under his thumb. You know, Sierra,
yeah.
Dylan, Brittany, like they weren't going to vote against him. It's
No, no, they weren't.
yeah.
They weren't going to vote against him. And it's so interesting because, and I've said this to Rob directly, like his argument was not that compelling when you really break it down line by line. But the way he presents it, and like you just said, the fact that he had them believing in him as a person, they were skewed in their interpretation of what he was actually saying
Hmm.
because they believe in him. And
Hmm.
like you said, that is a testament to Boston Rob and why he's so successful on these shows.
Yeah. So do you see it? You obviously correspond with Boston Rob. You respect each
Yeah,
other's games. Do you
yeah,
see it
where
as
Rob,
poetic? Do you see it as poetic justice though that he gets out next?
of course.
Yeah.
Of course, and I told him that. And I think our sit down comes out today,
Okay.
and I said to him, "I got you." And that's how I look at it. I'm from tough neighborhood. It's like, listen, sometimes you get in a fight, and you both get beat up. And the reality is, I went up against an absolute legend. Rob has done like what 10, 15 shows. This is my second show, and I'm proud to say that I think I held my own
Hmm.
against someone who's an expert at these games. And Rob and I have had some conversations, and it's nothing but respect both ways. And I told him, I said, hopefully next time we can be on the same team if we do another show together. Because honestly, us together would be just not
Yeah.
fair.
Insurmountable. Yeah, and I also want to know what you think about Tom Sandoval sort of
My hero? You talking
the
about my hero?
hero. Okay, so because in some ways it seems like he's kind of taking credit for kind of slaying the giant
Yeah,
when, like you said, you sort of laid the groundwork and sort of took the first big hit. What do you
yeah.
make of how Tom Sandoval has sort of taken some of that credit for taking Boston Rob out?
Listen, I'm happy for him. He
Okay.
took it over the finish line. I think at that round table, obviously the TV will make it look a certain way. I think Lala could have gotten Rob out that night after I went home. Honestly, I think Rob knew that. But no, I'm proud of Tom because in a world where or in a game where everybody's going to go with the grain and not want to make any waves, Tom was like, no. If it quacks like a duck and walks like a duck, it's a duck.
Yeah.
And I was hoping Dylan was going to be that person. And as you can see, he wasn't. And Dylan and I have talked about it, and I give him a lot of, crap for it. But it was ultimately Tom who got the ball rolling. And also they didn't show it as much, but Sam as well. Um, they took it over the finish line. And that's what you're supposed to do. Evaluate the information and then act on it.
Act
And
on it.
and who would have thought
Yeah.
Tom
Yeah.
Sandoval?
Who would have thought, you
You
know?
know, good for him though. I'm happy for him because he's not viewed that way, and
Yeah.
I'm happy that he got his flowers.
So you, Brittany, and Danielle, you're three
Yeah,
big brother giants, really, and you come into the show, and last season, for example, we saw some of the competition show people kind of really align, and the Bravo people all aligned last
yeah.
season, and that didn't really happen this season as much. Like at least from what we saw as viewers, there it didn't seem like the show faction sort of huddled up together to sort of create alliances. From your perspective as a big brother person, why did you, Brittany, and Danielle not come together as sort of a voting block?
Well, we were closer than it showed on the show for sure. I had no intentions on going after them. In fact, when you look at the stone competition, it doesn't show a lot of it, but I brought Brittany and Danielle's head up the hill and left my own down there.
Got it.
And Brittany and I had a moment that night where we were actually like teary-eyed talking about it. And she said, I got you. And it was good until it wasn't, right? I was leaning towards Danielle as the traitor. Everybody really was, especially after Jeremy went home. And we were good. And I wasn't really putting that out there, but I was like, okay, it's Danielle and Rob. And then episode 6, we'll just refer to it as episode 6 happened. And Brittany hadn't really been saying much the whole season, but all of a sudden
Hmm.
she was very vocal about Rob. And I was like, this is out of character for her. Why is she coming to me with this tone? Why is she so caught up on this? Why is she so sure that he's not a traitor? And then you roll into the round table and you saw her defending Rob and then trying to switch people to vote for Rob to stay. And I said, man, I missed it. It was Danielle. I mean, it was Brittany, not Danielle. And I screwed up, but it's a game. I'm
Yeah.
cool with Brittany. I'm cool with Danielle. Once I left that castle, we're good. And we could have done better. I would like to have seen us work together more, but unfortunately, Danielle was a traitor. And Brittany and I just had that one fallout. And I'm glad she didn't go home because of what I said, because what I was really trying to accomplish there by saying Brittany was a traitor is I did think she could be a traitor, but I also knew she was one of Rob's biggest advocates.
Yeah.
So pitting them against each other, hoping that I would stay, now Brittany can't defend him anymore because she has to defend herself. And although it didn't work out exactly the way I planned, it did work
It
because
did
Brittany
work.
couldn't go in there and defend Rob the next night. She was a vote against him as opposed to for him. And that's what I was really trying to accomplish. I said either Brittany's a traitor or a bad faithful, but either way, she's got to go.
And
So
we got to change our
good with
vote.
it. I
Yeah.
got to go with this. So that was the
Yeah.
plan walking out the door. Like I said, didn't work like I designed, but it did ultimately accomplish the mission.
For sure. So, last question for you, Derek. I feel like one of the central conflicts of the traders in general is good gameplay, good TV. And
Yeah.
sometimes those align, sometimes those don't align.
Yeah.
I think that some people come into the castle with different priorities in terms of that too. And obviously you're a game player. This is your first show after Big Brother. What do you make of that push and pull and sort of how those two things coexist in this traders world?
I would love to know your opinion on it because did you watch my Big Brother season?
Yeah, I watched every Big Brother season. Yeah,
I won Big Brother, but I think there's a good argument to be made that it was kind of boring what I did. It was pretty,
sure.
methodical. I think I played a different game on Traders. I think I was more aggressive and I think I was more entertaining. That's ultimately up for you to decide. But there is a balance. For me, it's all about what your goal is going on the show. My goal was to have fun and to catch the killers. I didn't care how far I made it. My metric of success wasn't how far can I get by. I could have gotten to a couple more episodes by doing nothing, playing
Right.
dumb, and just waiting to get murdered. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to have an impact on the game. I wanted to control my future. And so I decided to take that shot. I do think there's something, and I think Tony said this in previous interviews, where we got to get away from the throwaway votes. We got to get away from
Yeah.
the people who are looking for traitor angels. I get the concept of it, but that's not what people are coming to see. They want to see the faithful put it together and go after the bad guys.
Yeah.
And so I think it makes for a less fun show. And if we continue to do that, it's going to break the game to a certain degree. And I don't want to see that. So I think there has to be incentive for voting correctly.
I agree with that, and I also think that like I agree you played aggressively in this game, and it was entertaining. I think that I think most of the criticism comes from like the Traitors targeting some of the big personality housewives and things like
Yeah,
that, where it's like, as you said, there are people who are just sort of existing in that castle, not getting much airtime and not doing much. And
yeah.
that's the frustrating part, I
I
think.
mean, Johnny Bananas went home first. He would have been
Right.
great TV, but he didn't do anything wrong. Dorinda, that's kind of what I saw on this show too. Rob was going after all the independent thinkers, all the
Hmm.
people who would be vocal against him. Dorinda, starting with Dorinda,
Yeah.
right? I would have loved to work with her because I think she would have said, "No, this don't smell
She's a
right."
vocal person. Yeah.
Yeah. So I had to take that shot because he was basically getting rid of anybody who had a voice.
Yeah.
And if
That's smart.
anything, I waited. If anything, I waited too long. You know,
Right.
so I hear you, and I think it's so funny. I'm getting almost more of a positive response after my performance on Traitors than on Big Brother, and that
So
makes me
funny.
happy because I had a blast. So
Good.
I'm glad that people enjoyed it, and it's so funny how it works, right? You don't
Yeah.
win, and people like you more than when you won. I don't know.
Yeah,
That's the
and and fandoms are fickle, and this is the ultimate convergence of fandoms too. So it's kind of a it must be kind of a mind fuck.
it,
Well,
it,
Derek,
it-
that's all the time we have. But I
yes.
appreciate you taking the time to break this all down, and congrats on a good run on the Traders.
Thank you. It was a lot of fun. Thanks for having me.
I want to gab.